one of them I referred to when we did our meditation earlier tonight, and that is that how to get the knack of not wanting, and it's a very American tendency, not wanting to get something out of meditation, not wanting to achieve something. And I mentioned earlier that sometimes called spiritual materialism, sometimes called gaining ideas, what 13th century Zen master Dogen called it, gaining idea. So, but that's a very difficult, it's kind of like riding a bicycle. Someone that I was reading talked about that the path that we follow, or the way that we follow, maybe it's narrow, which means that maybe as ordinary human beings, we're never quite on the path. We're always kind of veering off it a little bit. But he said it's really like skating, where you put your weight in one direction, and then you shift and put your weight in another direction. So you're never right on the path, but you're going this way and then you're going that way. So the path is, the way we follow the path is kind of like this. It's a little off to the right, a little off to the left, but it can be quite graceful once you learn how to do it. When we look at meditation, like many beginners look at meditation like, I'm going to put on big, heavy earphones, and I'm going to listen to something trippy, and nothing will bother me, and I'm going to hide in this audio landscape. But that's not the idea at all. The idea is to experience ourselves very honestly, without, as I said earlier, without any judgment, and with some compassion. And it takes a great deal, actually, of kind of bravery to do that, to stop yakking our little story about ourselves and how important we are, or how unimportant we are, how great we are, or how what a miserable sinner we are. We all have these little stories we've memorized. Some come from our childhood, some are much more recent. So who you think you are. Remember, a week ago I was talking about having this Mother Teresa fantasy, and walking around in that, and every once in a while using the F word, and falling short of this mental fantasy of being a saint. So being a saint is maybe a goal, but it's a myth, it's a mythology that we're always falling short of. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I was in the new or an updated translation of the Greek Gospel, the New Testament. The translator was saying that the word sin has been concretized by the old boys club of Christianity, and that it didn't really exist as it's translated. The word in Greek is from archery, and it means missing the mark. Hamartia is the word, H-A-M-A, blah, blah. So, but then we get this terrible concept of sin, which is all or nothing. You've sinned, you've really blown it, you get to go to hell. And all the monotheisms have this kind of all or nothing. Philosophers call this the fallacy of misplaced concreteness. In other words, many scholars in the Middle Ages knew and believed that the Old Testament, especially, and the Quran, parts of it, were mythological. They understood mythology. But then, when the old boys take charge of a religion, they make everything very concrete, and that's fundamentalism. And we have that in Buddhism too. It's Hindu fundamentalism, and anywhere you have kind of impaired thinking, all or nothing thinking, black or white thinking, you get this fundamentalist attitude. Back to how to practice. If we're going to, quote, get nothing, then why do we do it? You know, if there's no gaining idea, if there's no gaining, what are we doing? So the usual answer is that we're opening up to the world in the present moment, and that our gateway into bliss is the present moment, and not bliss is too strong a word. Our gateway into contentment. Remember, I've talked many times about dukkha, the Buddhist idea of suffering, which we can translate as, Americans like the translation of stress, because we can all identify with that, or dissatisfaction. But the opposite of dukkha is sukha, which means contentment. It doesn't mean bliss, it means contentment. So even when things are going wrong, and it looks like the end of the world, like it does every morning when I turn on the radio, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. That's contentment. And just being able to enjoy. I recommend near-death experience for all. No, not for everyone, but it really, really helps appreciate having a life and being in the world with other beings. One other point I wanted to emphasize is that we do this as a group. This is not your individual project of self-improvement. That's very American, but it's not going to work. And I've talked with some of you about the hermit fallacy. Okay, some of us want to be hermits, but the trouble is, hermits always get in trouble because people think they're holy, and they start showing up to study with the hermit, and then pretty soon you're abbot of a huge monastery. That's what happened to Saint Benedict, happened to many hermits in all traditions. There is no hiding from other people. So how we, for instance, how we treat each other as we try to figure out the website, as we were doing today, that's where our practice comes into play. How do we accept the other people? How do we accept having power or not having power? Having a say-so or not having a say-so? Getting my way or not getting my way? All these elements of group process. In Asian countries, a sangha, a group, there's no problem. Well, there's problems, but because the ideal of harmony, of group harmony, is so prevalent, you don't get these shouting matches that we deal with here in the West, especially in North America and Europe to a certain extent. I saw this over and over in Hawaii. Some manager would come in from the mainland and just start bragging about how much he knew, and all the local workers kind of look at each other and roll their eyes, and that's not what you do in a group situation there. If you're new to a group, you're quiet, and you wait until gradually the group takes you on, accepts you. So we've got to figure that out in the U.S. as Buddhist practice tries to make its way in our society, which is deeply aggressive and warlike. Gary Snyder, who's was just in Hawaii, the poet, I remember him coming through once and saying, well, everyone says that, the Anglos think they have no culture and that everyone else is ethnic and has culture. But that's not true. White Americans do have a culture. And he said it's the Viking culture. It's pillage and tear up the landscape. So we do have a culture. And that's become part of our national culture too. Anyway, I'm drifting onto dangerous ground here, but any ideas? I'm really feel strongly about working together as a sangha rather than everyone on their own.